Hey yo, wagwan today, brothers. Hope everything's going peachy for you. And let's get into the Shiji pool for Tifa's crossover weapon, Sabin's Claws. So the outfit looks pretty decent. Sabin's outfit from Final Fantasy VI and has pretty much the same stuff as the Locke's outfit from the previous video. So physical and magical ward and physical ability mastery. As for the weapon itself, Sabin's Claws got a solid physical attack stat. Got boost attack 62 points, boost ability potency 39 points, physical attack, magical attack support material with an X sigil boost, and the command ability will look pretty familiar to you probably. 800% for 4 ATB physical non-elemental damage to all enemies, and with a conditional of if Tifa has 50% HP or more, it does 40,000 additional non-elemental damage to all enemies at max range or max OB, excuse me, and it increases physical attack and magical attack from low to high potency. So yeah, very similar to the Bahamut Greatsword, and because of that, obviously that is going to be the one weapon we are comparing it to, or the first weapon. So yeah, let's get into it. So obviously with the Bahamut Greatsword being the best physical attack stat in the game right now, it has the higher physical attack stat. Tifa's Sabin's Claws does have more total R ability points, quite a bit more, 101 to 85. Of course, the Bahamut Greatsword has the boost physical attack for all allies. And Tifa's Sabin's Claws is more like Locke's Sword, where it focuses on boost attack and boost ability potency. But it has a dedicated R1 ability for boost attack, so most of the points are in boost attack, 62 points. As a main weapon, that's straight level 7 boost attack. Support material is pretty similar, and of course the command abilities, as I've already touched on, are also very similar, pretty much exactly the same. The difference that Cloud's gives you a single cast of haste when you first cast it, and Tifa's gives you the physical attack and magical attack from low to high. Since Locke's Sword was the most recent weapon, I decided I'm going to compare this weapon to that one as well. Because their command abilities are so different, it's going to be a bit weird, but let's do it. Locke's Sword has more physical attack as well, and slightly less total R ability points, with more of a spread emphasis, with a bit more points in the R2 boost ability potency, whereas of course Tifa has a lot more points in the R1, the boost attack. Then of course the support material, it's elemental support versus physical, magical, and an X sigil. And then the command ability is not really comparable because they both do very different things, but it's 800% physical non-elemental AoE versus 1010% physical non-elemental single target. And then of course Locke's Sword has the unconditional elemental damages up, and Tifa's has the unconditional physical attack and magic attack up, and then of course it has the additional fixed damage if your HP is 50% or more. So not all too comparable, but in general I would say they're both solid weapons. The weapon synergies section of mine is a little weird for her weapon as well, because there aren't really any existing synergies. It's kind of like synergies with all weapons basically. Any offensive weapon at least that you use with her is pretty much going to synergize with this weapon, as long as it's not a healing or support weapon. A couple of examples is like Bahamut Fang for sort of a hybrid synergy for magical and physical, and Guard Gloves with more of a physical focus but single target and AoE physical. So for example, Bahamut Fangs has the boost M attack for all allies, and it's a magic attack that raises your gives you a magic attack up buff. And the Sabin's Claws is physical, with physical and magical attack buff. So a lot of both offensive stats going on there, physical and magical. And then if you use it with Guard Gloves, you're basically going to be buffing. The buff magic attack won't matter from the Sabin's Claws, but the physical attack will. And you're going to be buffing your AoE from the Sabin's Claws and your single target with the Guard Gloves. So yeah, no real synergies, but because it's such a versatile weapon, it's going to work with any offensive weapon that Tifa owns. Next up, sub-weapon value. So like Locke's Sword, it is great and versatile. It has a good physical attack stat, so that's always good as a sub-weapon. And then of course it has the boost attack and boost ability potency, R101, so it's a very good sub-weapon. It's obviously versatile because it's boost attack and boost ability potency, so you can use it as a sub-weapon on a physical DPS, on a magical DPS, or on a hybrid DPS. So that's really good. And I would argue that it's actually a little better than Locksword, which you can see on the right there, because of the dedicated boost attack. So you'll get a higher level of boost attack using this one as a sub-weapon. So let's get into the meat of it. My general thoughts of this weapon is that it's a hybrid weapon, and that makes it kind of weird in my opinion. But I think that might be a lot more common going forward, these hybrid type weapons. It's obviously still a great AoE physical weapon. It just is. 800% to all enemies is quite solid. It has the 4th best physical attack stat category in the game, so it shares that with things like Sky Splitter. It also has a solid cast speed, it's not too fast, not too slow, and as mentioned, it has a nice sub-weapon and good AoE damage. So overall, looking pretty good, My more specific thoughts is just like the Locksword, it's harder to boost, max out the boost physical attack or magic attack stat. So it has the boost attack obviously, so making that a little bit harder. And then of course with the importance of the boost all allies weapons, so they boost magic attack all allies, physical attack all allies, being more and more important, it's going to be a little bit harder to max out whichever one you're going for, physical attack or magical attack. But it should still be very much possible with sub-weapons, especially the ones with dedicated R abilities for those. Then I also mentioned that there's slow scaling buffs for offense. So obviously it boosts physical attack and magical attack from high to low potency, which in my eyes can be a bad thing and a good thing. It's a bad thing because personally I prefer sticking to one damage type and just maxing it out quickly with a high potency physical attack buff, magical attack buff for example. But the good thing is that it's very versatile. So obviously you could use it alongside any offensive secondary weapon for Tifa, whether it's magical or physical, and the damage will scale up because of the dual buffs, so to speak. And so for example, the Bahamut Fangs has the best pairing with magical weapons because it's got the boost magical attack up for all allies. And you generally want to pair it with something like Bunny Gloves, Shell Knuckles, or Karen Gloves for, you know, the best combo. But this weapon can pair with those magical weapons and strong physical weapons like Tifa's Holy Flame Gloves or Guard Gloves. It obviously has the best potential for a hybrid build as well, with buffs to both physical and magical, and hybrid R abilities. So as mentioned, the hybrid combo with Bahamut Fangs, for example, you could use the Bahamut Fangs command ability to raise your magic attack max and get haste, and that haste is going to allow you to use Seven's Claws to get your physical attack up a lot quicker, and then you have both physical and magical DPS in one. So my final thoughts is that it's basically a versatile Bahamut Greatsword. Since they both have the 800% AoE and additional fixed damage, that already makes them both very strong weapons in my opinion. Obviously the Bahamut Greatsword is going to be physically stronger because of the stats and the R abilities. It's going to be a better physical weapon. But you could also argue that even a low to high potency buff for both offensive stats is better than a one-time haste for 30 seconds. It kind of depends, I guess. The haste would be better in an easier fight, you can just get it done, whereas in a longer fight, Seven's Claws could actually honestly be better, at least the command ability, than the Bahamut Greatsword. I've mentioned it a few times, but it's a pretty nice sub-weapon too. It has that dedicated R ability for boost attack. So if you're going for a generic build, like a generic elemental build, where you have either boost physical attack or magical attack maxed out, and let's say level 8 elemental potency, and let's say you have an extra slot after that, then you can slap this in there for a decent damage bonus with boost attack level 4, so it's pretty good. And then the final thing that I mentioned is that it has tons of use cases. That's really hammering home the versatile point, because that really is its biggest strength. You can basically use it to experiment with hybrid builds with weapons available now and future Tifa weapons as well. It's still going to be pretty good for a hybrid build. And then also, no matter what your best, strongest DPS weapon for Tifa is, whether you're a newer player or a veteran, this weapon is going to work with it. That's how versatile it is. So yeah, sadly I don't have the crystals to pull for it because I went for the Terror Rod and Lock Sword, but it's definitely strong and versatile weapon, so if you like the weapon, I say go for it. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you hopefully pretty soon in the next one. Bye bye.